Hello, this is Hooked by Happenstance. I'm Kendra, and it is time for chapter 15 of Yarn Tales. Yarn Tales is my ongoing series here at Hooked by Happenstance where I read books, I tell you a bit about them, and then I apply silly Kendra rules to my rating system and I add a segment to my reading shawl, which is a book log that I am creating for myself to help make a tangible product from the intangible reading experience that I've had. It's a little bright outside today. I don't know what this ball of fire in the sky is. I don't recognize it, but I hear it's spring, and so the lighting is a little funky, but this is the best I could do, so we're gonna go with it. Today's book is a book that I read with my children via audiobook. It is called 100 Cupboards by N.D. Wilson. We listened to it on my phone through RB Digital. We have since figured out how to hook the phone up to the TV. Well, actually, figured out how to use my computer on the TV with the app. That was a little bit of a trick, but I figured it out, got myself all signed in, and now we can listen through better speakers when we listen to audiobooks as a family. So we used RB Digital, which is through the Kansas State Library Service, so we got this book for free. 100 Cupboards is the first in a series of books called 100 Cupboards. They kind of are, they're juvenile books, and they fall into that kind of suspense, thriller, mystery category. Not so much mystery as in, like, we have a case to solve, let's be detectives, but more like mystery, like, what the heck is going on, and how do we get home? That sort of mystery. I assume we're going to read the rest of the books in the series, but they're not necessarily, like, floating to the top of our must-read right now list, but they will happen. So, basically, this is a story of a boy named Henry who ends up in Henry, Kansas with his uncle and aunt and their children because his parents are travel writers who are imprisoned or something. It's all a little bit up in the air how and why he is where he is. Now, the first, 7/8 of this book were set up for the whole premise for the rest of the series. And the setup, I thought, was really, really interesting. Now, perhaps it was interesting because of who I am and where I live. So he moves to this place called Henry, Kansas, which is super rural, and he moves into a farmhouse, which is an old Victorian, and he lives in an attic. Now, we don't have an attic, but our upstairs sounds a lot like his attic, and in the process, he realizes that the plaster's kind of chipped away, and he spends his time discovering these 100 cupboards. And the process is basically him demolishing his bedroom piece by piece, which was extremely funny to us because we have done massive house renovation and we have demolished our house piece by piece and literally taken rooms down to studs and all the things. And no, there are no cupboards stuck in the walls of my house, in case you are curious. And we know for certain that might have been an interesting thing if we had not done the renovation yet, that we would read this book and been like, oh no, what's in our walls? But we know the answer is ladybugs. That's what's in our walls. Well, lady beetles, but anyways. That is a story for another time. So, this book kind of did all this lead up and all this setup, and I was really enjoying that part, and then it just put on the brakes because all of a sudden I guess they thought the adventure needed to begin, and I cared basically not at all about that adventure. So I don't know how I'm gonna feel about the other books, if they're gonna be more kind of setup things, or if now we're just gonna go from there, adventure time. And if that's the case, and if the adventures are anything like the adventure that happened in this book, I'm probably not going to like the rest of the series. But I really, really, really liked the setup and how he found the cupboards and the whole process that went through. So, we will definitely give another book a shot. Overall, I gave this book 3 stars because I was all ready to give it a 4-star just for the whole setup and the descriptions of how he did all the things in his room. But then I really, really didn't like the adventure and the mystery component and the thrillery bits. I just didn't care. And those were a 2. So I just meshed those and averaged it out at a 3-star. So now I'm sure you'd like to see my reading shawl. So the way that this works is I have 4 different yarns, one for each type of book that I consume. There's books with my kids, books from my Life's Library subscription service, books that I listen to personally in audiobook form and books that I read in physical form, which there haven't been quite as many of lately, but, you know, that's what happens sometimes. Okay, here is the ball band that I'm looking for. The yarn that I'm using for the books with my kids is some cattails yarn that I purchased just special for the shawl. It is Lanfear, which is from the Wheel of Time collection. 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% gold stellina. It's got some sparkly goodness in it. See, look at that fun. This yarn's got a lot of blacks and grays and blues in it, and it was very pleasant. So here is what my shawl looks like currently. So the way this works is that in addition to picking a different yarn for each type of book has a different pattern, as you can kind of see in those patterned rows. Like here's the pattern row from an audiobook, here's a pattern row from books with my kids. And then I add textured single crochet for the number of stars which the book got. So this got a smaller little stripe at its 3 stars, but it was a fine book. And I just add in the increases where they seem necessary to continue to get the shape I'm going for. Now, I will be honest, this particular segment was quite the bear to put in just because of math and the way it turned out. That's what happens when you're doing the textured sections and I'm adding in the increases in each row. Since I don't know which books I'm going to read and I don't know what the ratings are going to be up front, I can't quite plan ahead for the increasing. So then I have to fudge it when I get there. But it's all okay, and I think it turned out beautiful. It was a pleasant experience overall. If you would like to see more of these Yarn Tales videos, there is a playlist here on the channel so you can hear about all the books that I've read this year. There's also a playlist to the Yarn Tales that I did last year for some of the books that I read then. If you want to see the rest of the chapters that will be coming up, hit subscribe because these don't come out on any sort of regular schedule that makes sense to anybody but me. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any of them, they will just pop into your subscription feed that way. I hope you all are having a great whenever you see this, and I will see you next time. Bye!